This is Heavenscape, Year 1, the Strathmore Chronicles. Brought to you by Saturday Night Gaming. The Strathmore Chronicles. Written by Tony Stevens and Jessica Stevens. Narrated by Richard Winans and Tony Stevens. Gloom. Episode 7. The Molten Minotaur.
"Get back here, you crazy elf!"
Arthur roared, chasing his panic-stricken friend up the rocky slope of the angry volcano. Vel disappeared from sight behind a rocky outcropping, just as a fiery explosion ripped free from the mouth of the volcano. A massive ball of flame streaked down and hit just behind the cowering moon elf. The sudden explosive impact launched him toward Arthur. A deep, rumbling chuckle thundered around them. The charred ground at the mouth of the volcano began to crack, and a pair of huge hands emerged, raking at the black soil. Something was clawing its way out of the shaking ground. Huge, sweeping horns broke through the earth, and as the creature pulled itself up, dirt crumbled from its body. Its head was that of a bull, massive and grotesque. Its body was heavily muscled. Its legs were covered with thick fur, and its feet were heavy hooves. Ethereal chains were attached to cuffs around the creature's wrists. The chains shimmered with a ghostly red glow, and the blades at the end of the chains were hooked wickedly. Through a gaping bloody hole in its chest, Strathmore could see that its heart had been replaced by a large red stone, which glowed with the same red as its eyes. The creature shook itself, hooves pawing and stomping at the ground. Its bovine nostrils flared as it snorted and sniffed, and its burning eyes rolled madly. It was searching for something.
"Arthur, this is Mungarak, the Minotaur. He causes only chaos and betrayal. You cannot defeat him. We must flee."
The Minotaur turned at the sound of Vel's voice.
"Vel."
Its voice was deep and ancient, rumbling all around them, as if the stones within the volcano itself were speaking.
"I see you, Vel. These mortals won't be able to save you, just as no one could save you when Val's arrows pierced your flesh. I'm coming for you, Vel."
Vel let out an uncharacteristic squeak of terror and began to shake.
"Hey, bub. Down here. What's your problem with my buddy Vel? You got a problem with him, and you got a problem with me."
Strathmore shouted at the towering monster. The Minotaur began to chuckle, a rumbling thunder that echoed through the air.
"Get out of the way, little man. I have no quarrel with you." "Yeah? Well, I got a problem with you. And I may be smaller than you, but my blade sure isn't."
Arthur growled, pulling the massive Iratus blade free from its sheath on his back. The flames surged to life, dancing up the blade and over his hands. He could feel the fire, tasting the dark energy of the black ring, and as the flames absorbed its rage, they turned a dark blue, burning hotter than Strathmore had ever felt them.
"He has fire too, Arthur. Please, we must flee this place."
Rin moved to Strathmore's side and lifted the blue stone in both hands. A blinding flare of azure energy poured from the stone and formed into giant spikes of deadly ice. The spikes launched forward and sunk deep into the Minotaur's chest. The ground shook with the creature's rumbling laughter.
"Okay, Laura. You showed me yours. Now I'll show you mine."
The spikes of ice melted in the beast's flesh, steaming around him and turning the soil into mud beneath its hooves. With a snort and a bellow, Mungarak the Minotaur opened his mouth wide and unleashed an eruption of molten fire energy. Strathmore reacted instantly, stepping in front of his friends and raising the blade to intercept the blast. The fiery energy broke upon the blade with terrible force. The charred warrior was thrown back, gasping, but the Iratus blade glowed red hot and absorbed the heat of the blast. Seeing Rin unprotected, Mud rushed forward and faced the beast. The ground shook, and the Minotaur bellowed and lashed out with his ethereal bladed chains. His muscled arms and shoulders strained as he slung one blade high and the other one low. Mud leapt into the air. The unlikely hero twisted smoothly to avoid both attacks, and roared as he slammed his fist directly into the creature's face. Rin used the distraction to leap onto the beast's back and thrust her blade deep into his shoulders. The beast flexed and wiped the fresh blood from his snout. The very air rumbled as he laughed.
"Ah, a new challenger has arrived."
Vel's eyes glowed white as a burst of magical energy rushed from his fingertips. Tilk howled, running by Emery's side as she launched a spear towards the monstrosity. Even their combined attacks did little damage. In fact, Mungarak seemed more amused. The ground was shaking continuously now, as if the very volcano itself was laughing at them. Arthur Strathmore had had enough of this bull. Gripping his Iratus blade with both hands, he rushed in, hoping to flank the creature. Even though the old warrior had fought more battles than he could remember, he wasn't used to being blind on one side. One of the creature's huge bladed chains swept under his legs, knocking him down and whipping around to gash his chest. Searing pain ripped through his flesh, and he screamed as he felt his very soul burning. Mark ran out of hiding and crouched near the old wounded warrior. The small boy closed his eyes and put one hand on Strathmore's face and the other on his own chest. The yellow healing stone glowed brightly through his fingers. Arthur felt the warmth of the stone's power surging through his veins, healing both his flesh and his soul. With a huge grin, Mark disappeared as quietly as he had arrived. Strathmore rose slowly to his feet and studied the field of battle. Rin was wounded, clutching her side. Robert Gray lay cringing on the ground. Emery and Tilk crouched over him, protectively. Vel seemed to be in another waking nightmare, screaming and clawing at his back. Surprisingly, Mud was achieving some impressive feats. To Arthur's admiration, the small man rolled between Mungarak's legs and avoided an oncoming attack. With a roar, Mud push-kicked the Minotaur in its back, sending the creature sprawling forward into the volcanic soil. Mud planted his foot on Mungarak's shoulder and shoved the dazed Minotaur onto its back. A red stone glowed brightly from within the huge beast's chest. Mud reached down to rip the stone free. The volcano reacted instantly. The very air cracked and thundered, and molten lava burst through the rocks below. A fiery blast threw Mud into the air. The flesh of his arm blackened and charred. Something pulled at Strathmore's vest, drawing his attention from the devastation of the battlefield. Mark's face was solemn and innocent.
We can't defeat him. He's too strong. We need a sacrifice.
"What are you talking about, boy? That's crazy."
Trust me, we know all about sacrifices in my cult.
The boy pulled off his shirt and held his arm out over the smoking mouth of the volcano. He met the old warrior's eyes and nodded once. Strathmore sighed and raised the Iratus blade in both hands. As if the blade knew what he wanted, the deep blue flames receded, and the blade cooled, no longer molten red.
"Are you sure about this, boy?"
Strathmore searched the boy's face.
"I mean, it's gonna hurt, you know."
Mark smiled calmly and nodded. Strathmore shifted, moving forward to cut the boy's arm. Just as the blade touched his arm, Mark lunged forward. The massive blade slid effortlessly through the boy's stomach.
Thank you, Space Daddy,
Mark whispered. Strathmore screamed in horror as he realized what the boy had done. What he had done. Slowly, Mark's body slipped from the end of the blade. His eyes never left Arthur's as he fell gracefully backward. Strathmore dropped to his knees. The small boy's body was slowly consumed by the lava below.